1 year had passed since the fall of the Vrel Dominion. The galaxy was different now. Everyone could feel it. The old certainties were gone. The old powers were afraid. Something fundamental had changed in the balance of the universe, and it all came back to humanity. The Galactic Council gathered once again on Nexus Prime, the crystal. Spires still gleamed in the light of 3 suns. The Great Chamber still held representatives from 300 species. But everything else had changed. Ambassador Han Myray walked into the chamber. She wore the same simple black suit she had worn a year ago. Her face showed the same calm expression. But this time, no one laughed. Every representative in the room stood as she entered. Ancient beings who had lived for thousands of years. Mighty empires that had conquered star systems. They all rose to their feet for a human woman who had declared war on the most powerful military in the outer territories. In one, Myray walked to the central platform. She did not hurry. She did not look nervous. She moved like someone who knew exactly how much power she held. 1 year ago, she began, I stood in this chamber and asked for justice. The Vrel had broken the one rule. They had taken our children. They had tortured them in laboratories. She paused. And you laughed at me. No one moved. No one spoke. The Vrel representative called our children specimens. He said they were not important because they were only human. Her voice hardened. Do you remember what I said when I left this chamber? Silence. I said we were going to war. And I told you that we had been practicing for this moment our entire history. She looked around the room. Did you believe me then? Do you believe me now? Still, no one spoke. What could they say? The Vrel Dominion had been one of the most powerful forces in the galaxy. Now it was dust. 19 days. That was all it had taken. We are not here to threaten you, Myray continued. We are not here to demand tribute or territory. Humanity does not want an empire. We never did. She took a deep breath. We are here to propose a new law? The arbiter leaned forward. Its crystal body flickered with nervous light. What law? It asked. A second sacred rule, Myray said. Equal to the first. The protection of children shall be enforced by humanity. Any species found harming the young of another shall answer to us. Not to committees. Not to investigations. Not to years of debate while children suffer. To us, murmurs spread through the chamber. Some sounded angry. Some sounded frightened. But underneath it all was something else. Something that might have been relief. You want to be the enforcers of the one rule? A representative asked. You want that power? We do not want it, Myray said. But we will take it. Because none of you can be trusted to enforce it yourselves. And if we refuse? Someone else demanded. What then? Myray smiled. It was a small smile, but it made the chamber colder. She pressed a button on her communicator. Outside the crystal windows of Nexus Prime, the sky changed. Ships appeared. Hundreds of them. Then thousands. Human warships emerging from hidden space, surrounding the planet, their weapons armed and ready. We are not asking, Myray said quietly. The vote was unanimous. In the years that followed. The galaxy learned to live with its new protectors. Human fleets patrolled the shipping lanes. Human soldiers guarded colony worlds. Human intelligence agents watched for any sign of children being harmed anywhere in known space. Pirates, who had once raided settlements with no fear, found themselves hunted. Their ships were destroyed. Their bases were burned. The survivors were given a choice, change their ways or die. Most chose to change. Slavers who had traded in children learned that there was no place to hide. Human special forces tracked them across the galaxy. They were found in asteroid belts, on frozen moons, in the depths of gas giants. It did not matter. The humans always found them. A warlord on the edge of known space captured a shipload of children from a minor species called the Delori. He intended to sell them to the highest bidder. He was powerful. He had an army. He had ships and weapons and a fortress that had never been conquered. The humans came. Anyway, Lieutenant Gina O led the assault. Her team dropped from orbit in the dead of night. They moved through the fortress like shadows, killing guards, disabling defenses, opening doors that were supposed to be unbreakable. The warlord fled to his deepest bunker. He surrounded himself with his best warriors. He waited for the humans to come. Gina walked through the final door alone. Her armor was scorched and dented. Her weapons were nearly empty. But she did not hesitate. "You cannot have them," the warlord growled. "They are my property." "Children are not property," Gina said. "They are sacred." The warlord laughed. "Sacred? What does that word even mean?" Gina raised her weapon. "It means they are protected by humanity," she said. "And humanity does not negotiate." The children were rescued that night. All of them. They were returned to their families on Delori, where they were greeted as miracles. The Delori had never expected to see them again. Sora grew up on the colony world where she had been born. Her mother held her every night for the first year, afraid to let go. Slowly, the nightmares faded. Slowly, the scars healed. Captain Yuna visited whenever she could. She watched Sora grow from a frightened child into a confident young woman. At 16, Sora announced that she wanted to join the defense force. "Are you sure?" Yuna asked. "After everything you went through?" Sora nodded. "Because of everything I went through. There are other children out there. Children who are scared and alone. Children who need someone to save them." She looked at Yuna with steady eyes. "I want to be that someone." Yuna hugged her. She did not trust herself to speak. Admiral Tay retired after the Vrel campaign. He spent his remaining years on Earth in a small house by the ocean. He planted a garden. He read books. He tried to find peace, but every year on the anniversary of the rescue, he would receive messages. Thousands of them. From the children who had been saved. From their families. From people across the galaxy who had been protected by humanity's watchful presence. The messages all said the same thing. "Thank you, Sergeant Wu Bin." The Reaper continued to serve. He trained new soldiers. He led dangerous missions. He became a legend, a story that soldiers told each other in hushed voices, but he never forgot why he fought. "People ask me how I killed so many enemies," he once said in an interview. "They want to know my secret. The truth is simple. I was not fighting for glory or honor or revenge. I was fighting for a little girl named Sora. I was fighting so she could go home." The Galactic Council met every year to review humanity's role as protectors. Every year there were complaints. Some species resented human power. Some wanted to return to the old ways, but every year the vote was the same. Humanity would continue, because in the end, everyone understood the truth. The galaxy had failed to protect its children. The galaxy had laughed when humans asked for justice. The galaxy had called human children specimens, and humanity had made them pay. Now the galaxy was safer. Now children could grow up without fear. Now the one rule was more than words on a document. It was a promise. And humanity always kept its promises. In her office on Nexus Prime, Ambassador Han Mai kept a picture on her desk. It showed 47 children standing in front of a rescue ship. They were thin and tired and scared. But they were alive. Whenever someone asked her about the picture, she would tell them the same story. "These are the children the Vrel took," she would say. "These are the children we saved. This is why we fight. This is why we will always fight." Then she would smile. The galaxy thought we were primitive. They thought we were weak. They thought our love for our children was a flaw. She would tap the picture gently. They were wrong. Our love is not a weakness. It is our greatest strength. And outside the window, human ships patrolled the stars, watching, waiting, ready to answer any threat to any child anywhere in the galaxy, because that was what humanity did. They protected their own, and now everyone was their own. The galaxy watched in horror. News spread faster than light. Traders carried stories from system to system. Diplomats sent urgent messages to their governments. Everyone wanted to know what was happening in Vrel space. The answer was simple and terrifying. The Vrel Dominion was dying. It had taken 3,000 years for the Vrel to build their empire. It took humanity 19 days to destroy it. Day 1, humans struck every military target at the same time. The Vrel fleet was crippled before they understood they were under attack. Day 5, human ground forces landed on 12 Vrel colonies. They fought in conditions that should have killed them. They walked through poison gas. They swam through acid rain. They marched through temperatures that would freeze other species solid. The Vrel had never seen anything like it. Why do they not die? A Vrel commander screamed. We have thrown everything at them. They just keep coming. Day 9. The Vrel government offered to negotiate. They sent a message promising to return the children and pay compensation. They would agree to any terms humanity wanted. Admiral Tay read the message. Then he deleted it. They had 72 hours to negotiate, he said. That time has passed. Day 12. Sergeant Wu Bin earned a new name. His unit was ordered to hold a mountain pass on a Vrel military world. The pass was the only route to a valley where human ships were evacuating civilians. If the Vrel broke through, thousands would die. Wu Bin had 7 soldiers with him. The Vrel sent 500. They fought for 16 hours. The Vrel attacked in waves. They had tanks and aircraft and heavy weapons. They had numbers that should have overwhelmed the tiny human force in minutes, but the humans did not break. They used the terrain. They set traps. They fought with a desperation that the Vrel could not understand. Wu Bin killed 43 enemies himself. When his gun ran out of ammunition, he used his knife. When his knife broke, he used his hands. When his armor failed, he kept fighting in nothing but his uniform. When reinforcements finally arrived, they found him sitting on a pile of Vrel bodies. He was eating a food bar from his pack. Sorry, he said. I got hungry. Fighting takes a lot of energy. The reinforcement commander stared at the destruction around them. Hundreds of Vrel corpses. Burned vehicles. Craters where explosions had torn the ground apart. How? She whispered. How did you do this? Wu Bin shrugged. They tried to hurt our kids. That made me angry. The story spread through both armies. The Vrel began calling him the Reaper. Human soldiers called him something simpler. Hero. Day 15. Captain Yuna. Park led the mission to rescue the children. The laboratory moon was heavily defended. The Vrel knew the children were the reason for the war. They surrounded the facility with their best troops. They installed automated weapons on every approach. They swore no human would set foot on that moon. Yuna's fleet arrived at dawn. She did not waste time with clever tactics. She simply pointed her ships at the defenses and gave one order. Destroy everything between us and those children. The bombardment lasted 3 hours. When it stopped, there was nothing left of the Vrel defenses except smoking craters. Yuna landed with the first wave of soldiers. They moved through the destroyed base, searching every building, every bunker, every hiding place. She found Sora in a small cell at the bottom of a research building. The girl was sitting in the corner, her arms wrapped around her knees. She looked up when Yuna entered. Are you a soldier? Sora asked. Yes, Yuna said. I am here to take you home. They hurt me, Sora said. Her voice was flat, like she was talking about something that happened to someone else. They put needles in my back. They made me sleep for a long time. When I woke up, it hurt everywhere. Yuna felt her heart break. She knelt down and held out her arms. I know, she said softly. I am so sorry. But it is over now. No one will ever hurt you again. Sora looked at her for a long moment. Then she crawled forward and let Luna pick her up. She wrapped her arms around Yuna's neck and held on tight. I want my mom, she whispered. We are going to find her, Yuna promised. Right now. She carried Sora out of the cell, past the bodies of Vrel soldiers, past the wreckage of their weapons and machines. Other soldiers followed with the remaining children. Some of the kids were crying. Some were silent. All of them were alive. That was enough. Day 19. The Vrel homeworld fell. Admiral Tay led the final assault himself. His fleet surrounded the planet and demanded unconditional surrender. The Vrel government refused. They still believed they could win. Somehow, they were wrong. Human soldiers landed in the capital city. They fought through streets filled with desperate Vrel defenders. They pushed forward building by building, block by block, until they reached the government center. The Vrel High Council was captured alive. They were brought before Admiral Tay in chains. "This is illegal," the council leader hissed. "You cannot do this. The Galactic Accord protects us." Tay looked at him with cold eyes. "The Accord protects those who follow the One Rule," he said. "You broke it. You took our children. You tortured them. You treated them like animals." "They were just humans," the leader said. "Primitive creatures. They were not important." Tay was silent for a moment. Then he nodded to his guards. "Take them to trial," he said. "Let them explain to the galaxy why human children were not important." The trials were broadcast across every system. The galaxy saw the evidence. They saw the videos from the laboratories. They saw the children's injuries. They heard the scientists describe their experiments in calm, professional voices. The verdict was unanimous. The Vrel leaders who had ordered the kidnapping were guilty. The scientists who had performed the experiments were guilty. Everyone who had touched a human child was guilty. They were executed in public. Admiral Tay stood on the steps of the conquered Vrel capital and spoke to the galaxy. "We did not start this," he said. "We asked for peace. We begged for justice. The council laughed at us. The Vrel called our children specimens." He paused. "So hear me now, every species in this galaxy. What happened here was not a war. It was a lesson." He pointed at the burning city behind him. "This is what happens when you hurt human children. This is what happens when you ignore the One Rule. We will never forgive. We will never forget. And we will never, ever stop." Across the galaxy, beings of every species watched in silence. They had thought humans were weak. They had thought humans were primitive. They had thought wrong on a transport ship heading home. A little girl named Sora sat by a window watching the stars go by. Captain Yuna sat beside her. "Will the bad things stop now?" Sora asked. Why Yuna thought about the question. She thought about the war, the death, the destruction. She thought about what humanity had become in 19 days. "Yes," she said finally. "The bad things will stop." Sora nodded and closed her eyes. Within moments she was asleep. Yuna watched her breathe. This small child. This tiny, precious life. This was what the war had been about. This was why humanity had burned an empire, and given the choice, they would do it again. 72 hours passed. The Vrel Dominion did not worry. Why would they? They controlled 47 star systems. They had 8,000 warships. Their empire had stood for 3,000 years. They had conquered species far more powerful than humans. Their scientists continued their work. The human children were producing excellent data. The research would advance Vrel understanding of biology by decades. A few primitive creatures' suffering was a small price for such knowledge. On the 73rd hour, everything changed. It started with darkness. Across Vrel space, military installations went silent. Communication stations stopped responding. Defense platforms went offline. It happened everywhere at the same time. In perfect coordination, General Cross stood in the command center of the Vrel homeworld. He stared at his screens in confusion. Red lights were blinking everywhere. Entire fleets were going dark. What is happening? He demanded. "Report." "We do not know, sir," an officer replied. "We are losing contact with all outer bases. Something is interfering with our communications." "Something? What something?" Before anyone could answer, the lights in the command center flickered. Then they went out completely. Emergency power kicked in, filling the room with dim red light. And then the screaming started. Lieutenant Gina O moved through the darkness like a ghost. She led a team of 12 humans in powered armor. Their suits were black and made no sound. They could see in the dark. They could hear heartbeats through walls. The Vrel command station had 2,000 soldiers inside. They were big and strong and covered in scales. They had claws that could tear metal. They had teeth that could crush bone. None of it mattered. Humans were smaller. Humans were softer, but humans had something the Vrel had never understood. Humans were predators who had spent millions of years learning to hunt things bigger and stronger than themselves. Gina's team cleared room after room. They moved fast and silent. When Vrel soldiers spotted them, it was already too late. The humans struck from shadows, from behind, from angles the Vrel never expected. "Contact," Gina whispered into her radio. 5 hostiles, 20 meters ahead. "Copy," her team replied. They spread out. 3 went high, climbing the walls with magnetic grips. 2 went low, crawling through ventilation shafts. The rest approached from 3 different directions. When they attacked, it lasted exactly 4 seconds. 5 Vrel soldiers fell. They never fired a single shot. Gina stepped over the bodies and kept moving. Her mission was not to kill soldiers. Her mission was to reach the communication center and send a signal. A signal that would let the main fleet know the station was neutralized. The same scene was happening across Vrel space. Human special forces had been preparing for this moment for 60 years. They had infiltrated every major installation. They had mapped every corridor, every weakness, every blind spot. The galaxy thought humans were new to space. They were wrong. Humans had been preparing for war since the day they joined the Accord. They just never told anyone. Admiral Tay Quan stood on the bridge of the Hala as his fleet emerged from hiding. But this was not the small fleet the galaxy expected. This was not 200 ships. This was 2,000. For decades, humanity had built warships in secret. They hid them in asteroid fields, in gas clouds, in the empty spaces between stars. They told no one. They showed no one. They waited. Now the waiting was over. The Admiral opened a channel that broadcast across all frequencies. Every ship in the sector, human and alien, would hear his words. "This is Admiral Tay Quan of the Human Defense Force," he said. "You asked why humans were so obsessed with war in our history. You laughed at our conflicts. You called us primitive because we fought among ourselves." He paused. His fleet spread across the screen behind him like a swarm of angry fireflies. "Now you understand. We were not fighting because we were stupid. We were learning. We were practicing. We were getting ready for the day when someone gave us a reason to unite." He leaned forward. "You took our children. You gave us a reason?" The Vrel defense fleet scrambled to respond. But they were confused and blind. Their communications were down. Their command centers were silent. They did not know where to go or what to do. Human ships cut through them like knives through water. The technology was different. Human weapons did not look like anything the galaxy had seen before. They moved faster. They hit harder. They found weaknesses that should not exist. Captain Yuna Park led her squadron against a Vrel battleship 10 times the size of her vessel. Her ship, the Soul's Promise, was supposed to be a diplomatic frigate. It was not supposed to have weapons that could crack armor like eggshells. "Target their engine core," she ordered. 1 shot. "Make it count." Her gunner fired. A beam of concentrated light punched through the battleship's shields, through its armor, through 3 internal decks, and into its main reactor. The Vrel ship died in a flash of white light. "Next target," Yuna said calmly. "Keep moving." Across the battlefield, humans fought with a fury that shocked their enemies. They did not follow the polite rules of galactic warfare. They did not pause to negotiate. They did not accept surrender from ships that had participated in the kidnapping. Vrel commander screamed into his communicator, begging for help. "They are everywhere. They are in our ships. They are in our stations. How is this possible? How did they get so strong?" Nobody answered. The Vrel communication network was dead. In a laboratory on a distant moon, a scientist named Vor heard the explosions getting closer. He looked at the cages around him. 47 human children stared back at him with wide eyes. "We should kill them," his assistant suggested, "before the humans arrive. Destroy the evidence." Vor considered this. It made sense. The humans would be angry if they found the children alive but hurt. Better to leave no witnesses. He reached for a control panel that would fill the cages with poison. Gas, a human soldier crashed through the ceiling and landed on him, Sergeant Wu. Bin did not waste time with words. He broke the scientist's arm, then his leg, then pressed a knife to his throat. "Open the cages," Wu Bin said. Now, Vo opened the cages. The children poured out. Some of them were crying. Some of them were too tired to cry. A little girl with black hair walked slowly toward Wu Bin. She looked up at him with empty eyes. "Are you here to save us?" she asked. Wu Bin knelt down so he was at her level. His armor was covered in Vrel blood. His face was hard and scarred, but his voice was gentle. "Yes," he said. "I am here to take you home." The girl nodded slowly. "My name is Sora. I want to see my mom." "You will," Wu Bin promised. "Very soon." He picked her up and carried her out of the laboratory. Behind him, other soldiers gathered the remaining children. They moved quickly but carefully, protecting their precious cargo with their lives. The war was not over. It was just beginning, but the children were safe. That was all that mattered. The Galactic Council met on Nexus Prime, a world made entirely of crystal. The buildings rose like frozen waves toward the sky. Light passed through them and broke into rainbows that danced across the ground. It was beautiful. It was ancient. And it was where the fate of species was decided. 300 representatives gathered in the Great Chamber. They came in all shapes and sizes. Some floated in water tanks. Others stood on mechanical legs. A few existed only as patterns of light. They had ruled the galaxy together for thousands of years. They had seen empires rise and fall. They believed they understood everything. Ambassador Han Mai walked into the chamber alone. She was a small woman in a simple black suit. Her hair was pulled back tight. Her face showed no emotion. She looked almost boring compared to the strange and powerful beings around her. But she walked like she owned the room. The chamber fell silent as she approached the central platform. "I am here to present a formal complaint," she said. Her voice was clear and steady. 3 days ago, the Vrel Dominion attacked a human colony. They killed our people. They burned our homes. And they took 47 of our children. She paused to let the words settle. The Vrel have broken the one rule. We demand justice. Murmurs spread through the chamber. The one rule was sacred. Everyone knew this. But the Vrel were powerful. The Vrel were useful. The Vrel had many friends in this room. The Vrel representative rose from his seat. His name was Dross. He was tall and covered in dark red scales. His yellow eyes looked at the human woman like she was an insect. "The human colony was in disputed territory," Dross said. His voice was wet and clicking. "Our scientists were conducting approved research. The specimens were legally acquired." "Specimens?" Mai repeated the word slowly. "You call our children specimens?" Dross made a sound that might have been a laugh. "They are not Vrel children. They are not the children of any important species. They are only human children. Surely you understand the difference." More murmurs. Some of them sounded like agreement. Mai did not react. Her face stayed calm, but somewhere behind her eyes, something changed. Something grew cold. "I see," she said. "So the Council believes the one rule does not apply to humans?" The Arbiter spoke. The Arbiter was the leader of the Council, a being made of living crystal that had existed for 10,000 years. Its voice sounded like wind chimes. "The Council believes this matter requires further study," the Arbiter said. "We will form a committee to investigate. In the meantime, all parties should remain calm and avoid conflict." "A committee," Mai said. "To investigate the kidnapping of children." "Yes, these things take time. Perhaps in a year or two we will have recommendations." Mai nodded slowly. She looked around the chamber at the 300 representatives. Some of them avoided her eyes. Others looked bored. A few smiled at her, enjoying her helplessness. "Then let the record show," she said, "that the Galactic Council has denied our petition for justice." She turned and began to walk toward the exit. "Where are you going?" the Arbiter demanded. "We have not finished discussing this matter." Mai stopped. She did not turn around. I am going to war, she said simply. The Vrel have 72 hours to return our children. After that, there will be no more warnings, no more talking, no more committees. Laughter filled the chamber. Loud, mocking laughter from dozens of species. War? Dross clicked his teeth in amusement. You have no fleet. You have no allies. Your species learned to travel between stars within living memory. What war could you possibly fight against us? Marae finally turned. She looked directly at Dross. You are right, she said. We are young. We are weak. We have no powerful friends. She smiled. It was a small smile, but it made several representatives uncomfortable. But you made a mistake, Dross. You hurt our children. And now you will learn something about humans that the galaxy has forgotten. And what is that? Dross asked. We remember, Marae said. We remember every wrong done to us. We remember every insult, every injury, every drop of blood. We write it down. We teach it to our children. We carry it with us forever. She paused. The galaxy thinks our history of war makes us primitive. But we were not fighting each other because we were stupid. We were practicing. We were getting ready. The laughter had stopped. The chamber was quiet. Ready for what? Someone asked. For someone to give us a reason, Marae said. She looked at Dross one last time. You gave us a reason. She walked out of the chamber. The doors closed behind her. For a long moment nobody spoke. Then the laughter started again, but it was weaker now. Less certain. She is bluffing, Dross said loudly. Humans cannot fight us. They have nothing. The Arbiter's crystals flickered. Perhaps. But we should watch them carefully. Just in case, watch them? Dross waved a clawed hand. There is nothing to watch. In 72 hours, their deadline will pass. Nothing will happen. And then they will come crawling back, begging for our help. He sat down, satisfied. In her shuttle, flying away from Nexus Prime, Ambassador Han Marae allowed herself to relax. She pulled out a small communicator and pressed a button. This is Marae, she said. The council refused. The plan is active. Admiral Tay's voice came through the speaker. Understood. How long do we have? 72 hours. I gave them the deadline. There was a pause. Then the Admiral spoke again, and there was something in his voice that sounded almost like hunger. That is more time than we need. Marae ended the call. She looked out the window at the stars. So many stars. So many species. They all thought humans were weak. They all thought humans were primitive. They were wrong. For 60 years, humanity had hidden its true strength. They had built ships in secret places. They had trained soldiers in hidden bases. They had planted spies in every major power. They had mapped every weakness, every vulnerability, every blind spot in the galaxy. The other species saw humans as children playing at being a space civilization. They did not realize that the children had grown up. The clock was ticking. 72 hours. In Vrel laboratories, human children cried in their cages. They called for their parents. They did not understand why this was happening to them. A little girl named Sora had stopped crying. She had no tears left. She just stared at the ceiling and waited. She did not know that help was coming. She did not know that across the galaxy, an entire species was preparing to burn worlds for her. 72 hours. The Vrel should have listened. They should have returned the children, but they did not. And now it was too late. The Galactic Accord had existed for 12,000 years. 300 different species from across the stars had signed it. They had agreed to follow 1,000 laws that kept peace among them. But of all these laws, only one was considered truly sacred. Only one carried the punishment of complete destruction. The law was simple: no species shall harm the children of another. Every civilization understood this rule. Every species, no matter how different, had young ones. They all knew the pain of losing them. So this law had never been broken. Not once in 12,000 years, humanity had joined the Accord only 60 years ago. They were newcomers. Other species looked at them and saw primitive creatures. Humans were emotional. They fought among themselves. They came from a small blue planet in an ordinary part of the galaxy. Nobody thought they were special, but humans were clever. They learned quickly. In 60 years, they had built trade routes across the outer territories. They had established colonies on distant worlds. They had made themselves useful, even if nobody respected them. Captain Una Park stood on the bridge of her ship, the Soul's Promise. She was a small woman with sharp eyes and steady hands. Her ship was a diplomatic frigate meant for peaceful missions. It was stationed near a border world called Kepler 442b. On this world, 12,000 humans had built a colony. They grew food in the red soil. They built homes under the alien sky. And among these 12,000 people, there were 2,000 children, boys and girls who had been born under strange stars. This was their home now. Una loved visiting the colony. She would walk through the streets and watch the children play. They chased each other between the buildings. They laughed at the purple sunsets. They did not know how rare they were. They did not know that most species in the galaxy found humans strange and primitive. The Vrel Dominion had been watching the colony for months. The Vrel were reptiles. They stood 8 feet tall and had scales the color of dried blood. Their eyes were yellow and cold. They had existed for 3,000 years and had conquered 16 species in that time. They believed they were superior to all other life forms. Most importantly, the Vrel loved science. They loved to study other creatures. They loved to cut them open and see how they worked inside. They had learned much from their experiments. They had become powerful because of them. When the Vrel looked at the human colony, they saw something interesting. Human children grew differently from Vrel young. Their brains developed in unusual ways. Their bodies changed as they aged. The Vrel scientists wanted to understand this. They wanted samples. The attack came at night. Vrel ships dropped from the sky like falling stones. They moved fast and quiet. The colony had no real weapons. It was a farming settlement, not a military base. The people could do nothing but run. Una received the distress call 3 minutes after the attack began. She ordered her ship to maximum speed, but she was 4 hours away. 4 hours was too long. The Vrel did not kill everyone. That was not their purpose. They moved through the colony with scanners, searching for what they wanted. When they found children, they took them. They put them in metal containers and carried them to their ships. Parents screamed and fought. Some were killed. Others were simply pushed aside. The Vrel did not care about adult humans. Adults were not interesting to them. By the time Una arrived, the Vrel were gone. They had taken 47 children. The colony was burning. Survivors wandered through the smoke, calling out names that nobody answered. Una walked through the destruction. She found a woman sitting in the ashes of her home. The woman held a small shoe in her hands. It was pink with white flowers on it. "They took my daughter," the woman said. Her voice was empty. "Her name is Sora. She is 7 years old." She was afraid of the dark. Una knelt beside her. She did not know what to say. There were no words for this. 3 days later, Admiral Taekwon received a transmission on his carrier ship, the Hala. The message came from a human spy inside Vrel space. It contained a video file. The Admiral was an old man. He had served in the human fleet for 40 years. He had seen many terrible things. But nothing had prepared him for what he saw in that video. The recording showed a Vrel laboratory. White walls. Bright lights. Metal tables. On one of the tables lay a small girl. She had black hair and round cheeks. She was crying and struggling against the straps that held her down. A Vrel scientist stood over her with a long needle. The scientist pushed the needle into the girl's spine. She screamed. The sound was high and sharp and full of terror. It went on until another Vrel injected something into her arm. Then she went quiet, but her eyes stayed open. They were filled with pain and confusion and a question that had no answer. Why? The Admiral watched the video once. His face did not change. His hands did not shake. He simply sat in silence for a long moment, then he spoke. "Contact every human vessel in this sector," he said. His voice was calm. Too calm. "Tell them to converge on my position. Tell them to prepare for war." His officers looked at each other. One of them spoke carefully. "Sir, the Vrel have 8,000 warships. We have less than 200 in this region. The Council will not support us. We cannot win this fight." Admiralty turned to look at the officer. His eyes were dark and cold. "I did not ask if we could win," he said. "I said prepare for war." The officer nodded and left to send the message. The Admiral looked back at the frozen image on his screen. The little girl's face, her tears, her fear, they broke the one rule, he whispered to himself. Now they will learn why it existed. Across human space, ships began to move. Messages flew between colonies. Soldiers checked their weapons. Pilots ran to their fighters. The galaxy had made a mistake, and humanity was about to correct it.